When we do magic for ourselves, especially practical magic, magic that's designed to create some sort of manifested result in our life, it can be tempting to trick ourselves or delude ourselves that there's been some sort of result when there really hasn't been any result. So sometimes by doing magic for someone else and getting that feedback from them, yes, it really worked, that can be very helpful because it's a more objective way of testing your skills. And of course, falling into that category is in fact doing magic professionally, becoming a professional magician or a root worker, a root doctor, or a spiritual worker in some capacity. There are people doing this kind of work in all kinds of different modes. And of course, because my training and my work and my business is really founded on the root working tradition, I've been serving that community for the last 10 years or so. That's kind of where my frame of reference is based. But of course, there are people doing spiritual work for others for money in other ways, in other traditions, whether it's working shamanistically or as a healer, as a curandera, any other kind of paid for exchange of services, right? But aside from the fact that this is a good way of testing your abilities, it is good to understand that doing magic professionally, even though it seems like it would be an attractive, interesting, fun career, if you love magic, if you love the esoteric arts and the occult and working spiritually, it might seem, wow, this will be so much fun. I'll be doing what I love every day. And there is truth in that, but there is a dark side to this, or a downside to doing magic professionally for others. And you should be aware of that before getting into the business, right? Because it is a business, and like all careers, like all line of kinds of work, it does have a downside, it does have a cost. And one of the main costs for doing magic professionally, doing work for others, I find, is the fact that when you are working on other people's problems, magically, spiritually, there is the possibility of drawing that trouble into your own life, right? So if you're working as someone with financial problems, you might start seeing financial problems in your own life. If you're working with someone on relationship problems, those problems might start mirroring in your own life. And a good spiritual worker will be trained to protect themselves, to maintain their stability, to maintain their integrity and their balance in the face of this onslaught of the client's problems. And this is just on a spiritual and magical level, energetic level. Then of course there is the impact of dealing with people and their problems. In some sense, you're acting as a counselor, you're listening to people's problems all day, you're reading for them, and you're having to serve a healing function, really, a therapeutic function sometimes even, or just to be a friend who can listen to their problems. And this is an important part of the job. As such, it requires a lot of integrity. It requires a lot of work on yourself and self-healing, so that you don't project your own biases, your own hang-ups, your own issues onto the client, right? So for example, if you have your own relationship problems, or you have issues with men yourself, that you then don't project your own biases, your own resentments into that session with a client. You don't start projecting those problems onto them and influencing them in a way that could be potentially harmful. And of course, the way around that, the way to avoid that, is working on yourself. A spiritual worker is spending a good deal of their time cleansing themselves, developing themselves spiritually, which maintains which means maintaining the spiritual framework around them, taking care of those spirits and those guiding powers that help them, so that they are fortified, so that they are strengthened, so that they are able to serve someone else, right? So there's a lot of work on yourself that's going on. Then there's also constant self-study, improvement of your abilities, learning and growing as a practitioner and as a human being, so that you can be of service to someone else. You cannot be of service to someone else if you are broken. You cannot be of service to someone else if you are broke or psychologically disturbed fundamentally. It's going to be very difficult to really help someone if you are in a very weakened position, because it requires strength. It requires a certain amount of fortitude and resilience to not only be there for someone emotionally and intellectually and spiritually, but also to be able to deal with the magical fallout of that relationship. And believe me, doing magical work for other people does create fallout for you in your own life. So you need to know how to deal with that, how to handle that, those forces. And they can be corrosive on some level. They can be destabilizing. This work can be extremely destabilizing. So it requires a sense of stability. Your family life requires some sense of stability. Your personal relationships, you need to have some stability in that. Your financial arrangements need to be quite stable. Of course, your spiritual health and your mental health needs to be stable. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. We are all working on ourselves. We all have problems and issues. We all get sick. We all sometimes get depressed or have mental health issues, even spiritual workers. But you should not be in a crippled state with that constantly, because it's going to be difficult for you to be of genuine service if you yourself are a mess, fundamentally. Then, of course, the most important quality I find in a spiritual worker, the most desperately needed thing, and believe me, spiritual workers are needed in this world. We do need more people doing this work with integrity and sincerity. But the most important quality that is needed is the desire to be of service, the genuine willingness to come into the world with your gifts and your potentials and to try and help people. The desire to be of help should be your primary motivation. It's not to say making money or building a career is not a worthwhile motivation, but in terms of being a competent spiritual worker, if money and building a business is your primary motivation, you will exploit your clients for money and for your own material, social status and interest. And that, of course, is a very destructive relationship to enter into. Clients may not at first realize that that is your motivation, but soon enough they will realize. And of course, that's going to have its consequences also, because word travels, people talk, and your reputation will suffer. Conversely, if your motivation is to genuinely help, to genuinely be of service to your clients, to genuinely share your gifts with a good heart, that will translate also. And whatever gifts you have, no matter how small or humble, those things will be put to the service of the people who come to you. And I am of the belief, and I have also been made aware spiritually by those guiding powers, those spiritual guides and angelic beings that work with me in my work, that people who come to doing this work for others with sincerely good intentions will find that those clients that are most in need will be sent to them. The spirit people, the angelic powers, the forces, the spiritual forces that guide our kind of work are very much there guiding this process, and if you have a good heart, they will make sure that those clients, that those people that need you come to you.